Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I begin in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and welcome to Behind the Headlines on our new time every Friday from 7 till 8 p.m. My name is Ahmad Bostan, and it's an absolute pleasure and honor to have you with us on this program. As you know, those of you who are regular viewers of the show, each and every week we feature an inspirational guest, speak about their life, their story, with the hope being that people watching, including myself presenting, will be inspired and motivated in terms of what they have to say and their life story. I think it's always good to learn about people's struggles and the highs and the lows that people speak about, particularly those who are active in public life. The need has never been more than it is now for particularly members of the British Muslim community to get active in whatever it is that takes your fancy, whether it's politics, law, academia, whatever it is. It's very important that we as a community are active, and alhamdulillah, so many of us are. The past few years have really shown us that, and we have so many fantastic stories to share. A lot of you will be constantly down whenever you see the news headlines, but we like to celebrate the positives as well. And remember, this is your show. We are live, so please do get in touch with us if you have any questions or comments throughout the show. The phone number is there, 01924 231 083. You can WhatsApp, you can tweet us, you can send us a message on Facebook. There's so many ways to get in touch. And I'm delighted to say that I have a very, very special guest joining me on today's program. The Right Honourable, the Noble Lord Wajid Khan of Burnley, was appointed to the House of Lords last year, actually, 2020, by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, after he was nominated for the position by the leader of the Labour Party, Sir Keir Starmer. Lord Khan is not only someone who has really made his mark in the House of Lords, but previously served in the European Parliament. He has always been a strong advocate for human rights, social justice and equality, not only in the UK, but also around the world. He has been a director of various charitable organisations, community organisations over the years, and has been a pioneer in terms of promoting young people from minority ethnic backgrounds to go forward and achieve their aspirations, and has received many awards and accolades over the years. And it's my great pleasure to welcome him to the programme. Lord Khan, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for joining us on Behind the Headlines tonight.
Walaikum assalam, Ahmed, and thank you so much for inviting me to be a guest on Behind the Headlines and to come on British Muslim TV. It's a pleasure.
Absolute honour to have you with us. Now, Lord Wajid Khan, I want to start right at the beginning, if I may. Your interest in politics started at a very early age when you stood and were elected by a landslide, even at that age, in the student council elections. Where did that passion come from? Where was that motivation? Was it national issues, international issues, or something very, very local, perhaps issues in the school? Where did the passion for politics come from in the first place?
Ahmed, it was just a bunch of friends who I used to hang around in the common room, or I'd say the canteen gang, and would say, look, you should put yourself forward. You're kind of got a lot of mates, well connected, well liked, and we want you to go for this student councillor position on the governor's body, and you'll make a good contribution, and you'll fight for the students to ensure that the college, the sixth form, looks after our needs. So it was nothing national or international. It was just very much it didn't start off as a serious venture, but it was just some encouragement from some friends who I thought wanted me to stitch me up. They thought I'm going to lose badly, but the reverse happened in the sense that I won pretty comfortably in the end.
And what did you learn from that particular experience? Because a lot of young people watching will have that situation right before them now. You know, the student council elections. Am I really the person to go for it? I'm not really a public speaker, or I don't have the confidence. What did you gain from that experience? How did it enhance you in terms of your own skills and competencies being on that body?
That's a very important question you've asked there. And I think the basic word that I really took out that experience was responsibility. Knowing that you are holding a position of responsibility, people are looking towards you to find some answers to pretty complicated questions and situations. I think for any young person, you've got to take them roles very seriously, because you are representing people, and you're accountable for all those people that put their faith and trust in you. So from a very early age, from what started off a bit of a light-noted attempt to get onto this governing body as a student councillor, it turned into a watch what I'm doing. So make sure I behave and conduct myself in a certain manner where people think, where he's a student councillor, he needs to show some leadership and lead by example.
So you did your years at school, college, you went on to university. Were you active in university politics at all? Because a lot of people get involved in the National Union of Students and other bodies and manage to see what the national stage of politics is like at that stage. Did you have a passion for much of that, or even time for much of that at university? Because I see from your biography that you're somewhat of an academic as well, mashallah, not just a politician.
No, the answer is no. I didn't have continue the university kind of interest in politics. I just kind of took a back seat in terms of letting other people do all that, and I watched from afar. And I spent most of my time trying to make sure I work out what I was going to do, because I did a law degree, and then I went off to do the barrister course in London, and I just didn't at the time. A bit of irony here for you, but I didn't like London at the time. It was too fast and too busy for me. So I came back up to what I call a slower, chilled out life in the north. So I didn't take that much of an interest at university, just focused on making sure I got myself into a right career. And that's a really important point, because I started off wanting to become a hotshot lawyer, and then I moved and transitioned through my academic work and some of my project work into academia, which was an area which I grew to love, and I'm still involved now as I speak.
That was quite a big transition for you, Lord Wajid Khan, at the time, I would imagine, because you talk about law, and many of our parents and grandparents want us to become lawyers, doctors, those professions that give you that security. But actually, you went and became very passionate about community work and community development. How did people react to that? Because I'd imagine that a lot of your family members would be thinking, how are you going to pay the bills, Wajid?
Yeah, you raised a really funny point. I came home first day and I said to my dad, I said, I'm just doing some work, and it's a volunteer work. He said, volunteer work? What do you mean? I said, I work for free. He goes, hey, what kind of job is that where you work for free? So it was convincing people at home and nearby that this is a really important skill development and it's confidence building, a valuable experience where you kind of get a kind of taste of working life and developing projects as a volunteer. It was one of the best things I ever did. And that's a really important message to those watching, is that do volunteer, do give up time. I always feel most happiest when I'm either giving up time for other people or giving money in the way of Allah. I feel, when you're giving it from a faith-based perspective, you feel more content. So I had some struggles when I was at university, because obviously at the time, postgraduate programs, master's program, you had to fund them yourself. So I took a part-time job as a taxi driver to ensure I was up to date and I could pay my installments on my master's in European law. So some interesting times. Another point, Ahmad, I would like to say is that I went out, as you said, culturally, people said doctors, lawyers. I went out wanting to become a lawyer, and I changed my mind and went into academia through some strong support and mentoring. And that's an important point. It's okay to change your mind because wherever you need to realize, you might not, your degree, the depth of knowledge, experience, and the way you can articulate intellectual ability, that the degree offers that experience for you to transpire into different areas, different fields. And that's what I did.
But as a northerner, a Muslim, a Pakistani lad, how did people react to you in the academic world, making that transition? Because a lot of our viewers, when they hear the term academia, they imagine the stereotypical image of a university lecturer, professor, white, middle class. How did people react to you when you decided that you wanted to enter that world of academia?
Good question, and I think it was a challenge at that start. People have got to don't take you seriously, and you've got to build up your credibility, reputation. You've got to obviously conduct research. You need to build up your academic profile. And I think at the time when I was at the university, I didn't see many people that looked like me as academics. And I think over time, we're seeing a greater, number of academics from a variety of diverse backgrounds, but you got to really kind of dig in deep. And the lucky thing for me, I had an area which was active citizenship, community leadership, an area which is pretty new. There was no like set area, which was basically evolving at the time. So I was managed to kind of forge my way, into an area and develop academic programs from scratch, looking at the real life experiences of individuals. And I just made that transition into academia by actually developing academic programs and then ensuring they were of high standard. They've tested the academic rigor was all foolproof, and made sure there was objectives of the program, and then also trying to work out career progression as a result of attending the program.
And that's really inspirational, Lord Wajid Khan, because not only were you someone delving into the academic world, but you were involved in shaping your own narrative, shaping your own destiny almost, not only for yourself, but for people like you to actually make academia relate more to the diversity of our population, which I find truly, truly fascinating. We are in conversation with Lord Wajid Khan, the Noble Lord for the area of Burnley. Many of you will be watching from Burnley right now. Please do give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. If you've got a question for Lord Wajid Khan about academia, about politics, which we'll come on to talk about after the break, we would love to hear from you. 01924 231 083 is a studio number. If you want to text, you're more a texter than a talker, then you're more than welcome to drop us a message on WhatsApp. You can send us a tweet. You can send us a message on Facebook, whatever you like. The most important thing is we'd love to hear from you on the program. And we are here listening to and watching the inspirational story of the Right Honourable, the Noble Lord Wajid Khan of Burnley, someone who's not only in the House of Lords, but someone who served in the European Parliament. We'll be talking more about his journey in life, the ups and the downs, right after this break. So please stay with us. We'll join you right after this. Dear viewers, assalamu alaikum and welcome back after that very long break. It wasn't long at all, was it? I hope you managed to grab yourself a cup of tea or cup of coffee, because we're in conversation with Lord Wajid Khan of Burnley, a member of the House of Lords since 2020, a former member of the European Parliament, someone who's been a pioneer in community leadership. He's got so much, mashallah, that he's done in life, and we are now fortunate, privileged to be able to really experience his journey in life, and he's taking us through that now. Lord Khan, welcome back to the program. Now, when we left you before the break, you were at university, you were entering the world of academia. Not only that, but you were developing academic programs around community leadership. What was the reaction to those particular programs? Because at that time, I'd imagine there wasn't as much an emphasis on diversity and diversifying the academic voice as perhaps there is now.
Yeah, you make a valid point there, Ahmed, and I think that was the challenge for me, trying to first embed myself into academia and then kind of develop and sustain academic programs. And there was a golden moment for me when we was developing a new campus in my hometown in Burnley, and the campus had a three kind of focus, trying to get young people, mature students, and in particular, there was a focus on engaging and getting South Asian females on the program. And I think we did a foundation degree, which we engaged South Asian females like never before. And this was really instrumental, because there was a massive institution, academic institution, on the doorstep, and a lot of these wonderful South Asian females weren't confident to go to that massive, huge infrastructure, millions of pound infrastructure, beautiful building, but they didn't feel confident. They didn't seem that was for them. And that was such a huge a piece of work where we managed to get 20 students,
Wow.
mainly South Asian females, to attend the program, and it was such a learning curve for me. And I remember one student said to me, I asked her, well, what are you going to do when you complete this 2-year foundation program? And she said, Wajid, I'm just going to become a better mother. And it hit me, and I thought, well, actually, we're so focused on looking at degrees as job training. People study academic programs because they're passionate about that particular subject area. And all she wanted to do was to be able to equip herself and develop herself, intellectual ability, trying to get more knowledge and experience to be able to understand and focus and developing her own family.
Lord Khan, I hesitate in interrupting you there, but we do have a couple of callers online who would like to speak to you. So let's just go to them, inshallah, and see what they would like to say. Assalamu alaikum, caller. You're live on British Muslim TV.
Hi, Ahmed. Is it Ahmed?
Yes, speaking. Hi. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, my name's Ahmed Khan. I'm from Blackburn.
Oh, welcome to the program, Ahmed Khan. And what would you like to say today?
Basically, just a question to the Lord Wajid Khan of Burnley. I'm sat amongst many youngsters, and they wanted to ask many questions, but they don't have the confidence to ring up. So the question I'm going to ask you, Wajid, is where do you get the confidence from, and is it something that you've built up over the years? Because you're a good speaker, and you've been on many TV interviews, and you've been speaking in the House of Lords and the European Parliament, because all these youngsters follow you, and you must have had challenges in your life. And how have you dealt with these challenges in life? And because just something that the kids can learn from.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your question, Ahmed Khan, and I really appreciate you coming forward and asking that on behalf of young people that are out there and are watching. Thank you so much for your call. We'll ask Lord Khan to answer that in a moment. But before we do so, I would just like to take another call, and then inshallah we can answer all the questions together. Thank you so much for your call, Ahmed. Really appreciate it. Thank you. And let's go to the next caller and see what they would like to say. Assalamu alaikum. You're live on British Muslim TV. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening. You're live on British Muslim TV. Oh, we've literally lost that caller. If that was you, please come back. 01924 231 083. Lord Khan, your confidence, where does it come from? The challenges you faced, how have you tackled them?
First of all, thank you very much, Ahmed Khan, for your question. I think it's a really good question because, but you'd never, well, you might think, well, this guy's joking, but when I first used to do presentations at university, my legs used to shake. I thought, oh, I can't be doing this. It was such a challenge. And I think the message to you and others that are thinking like this, over practice over time. Just keep practicing and don't be afraid to make the mistakes. And the more you kind of delve yourself into it and go, like forward and come forward and to, positions of where you're doing a bit of public speaking, that is only yourself who can develop that confidence. You have a mentor with you, trying to work out strategies how you can deal with the people. I've had the opportunity to address 5,000 people. And then I've also, 10, 15 people and even few people in shorter seminars. I think overall, just be believing yourself, be true to what you're trying to say. And there's no point, it's difficult when you're trying to make a speech or trying to deliver something where you don't really believe in that. And you're thinking, well, I'm not really understanding that. Try to understand, what you're talking about. And my last point on this is, look, there's a big saying, failure to prepare to fail. But also, failure isn't in falling down, it's falling down and not being able to get back up again. So many challenges in life. Many people try to bring you down. A lot of people who some people don't even want the best for you, but you've got to just think about where you want to go, where your vision is. Forget what people on the left and the right are doing, or whatever people on, in your families or cousins or whatever. It's your own journey, and only you can take that journey.
Very inspirational words, and I think many people out there can relate to that fast heartbeat before you go up and do something that you're nervous about, that you get, whether it's a speech or if it's something that you're doing in front of a crowd of people. We can all relate to that, no matter how much experience you have, as you said, Lord Khan. Let's move on to talk about your political journey. Now, you have really not just reached ceilings, but actually smashed through ceilings. You are currently one of the youngest members of the House of Lords. You were one of the youngest members of the European Parliament, and even when you stood for the local council, one of the youngest councillors. Now, the stereotypical image that people have about politics and politicians is, how can you get involved in politics? Because the old people don't want to give you that chance. They don't want to give you that opportunity. Did you face those barriers? Did people look at you and say, what's this young lad doing, trying to become the leader of everything at such a young age?
Ahmad, you touch a very important point, an area of subject of where a lot of people face a lot of, I'd say, obstacles and barriers. When I came into politics, and this is such an important point, I came into politics in 2006-07 as stood for local councillor because primarily of the BNP. At the time, we had 6 or 7 BNP councillors in Burnley, and I just got fed up and frustrated at having BNP representing me in my areas. And so our elders, respected elders, were really not really focusing on challenging or exposing their ignorance and the way they were working. So I kind of really forced my way, and I had to battle in. And you're right, the people saying, "What are you doing? You're not ready for politics." And it was a huge kind of challenge. And I just, I was lucky. I had a lot of youngsters with me, so my campaign was run by youngsters, and it was all developed by young people, and that was like first time ever in my area where we had so much energy and people taking interest because they had a youngish fellow person, a colleague or older brother running for local council. So it took a lot of manoeuvring, a lot of kind of obstacles. We got there in the end. And so BNP in Burnley, so that was the reason. And over time, we got rid of BNP in Burnley. So I was quite happy. And
how did you address that? How did you address a political narrative where the color of your skin, who you were, where you were from, your background was the main tactic that your opponents were using to fight you on? How did you address that narrative?
Because the way I addressed that was very clearly just being British Pakistani, being a British Muslim, and being proud of my identity, but then also making the points for my area and speaking across for all communities. And actually BNP, the councillors, I'd go up to them and have a chat with them. And I'd sit next to them when they were having the lunch or the dinner, and I'm thinking, "Hey, how you doing? Are you okay?" And they were expecting me to go angry at them, and I didn't. I showed them love. I showed them what my mum would always say: be nice to people, be good to people. And when I got to know them, and they actually realised, well, actually, this guy can speak just as good as English, if not better than ourselves. He can make the very valid points that concern communities, and there was no way of them kind of finding something to attack me on, because anything they could do, I could do just as equal, because as a British-born of Pakistani Muslim origin, I was just as passionate about my local community in my hometown, Burnley. Overall, people realised that actually this narrative, this image, that the stereotype that the BNP are putting up again about people from colour, people from religion, is actually wrong. He's just one of us, and we are proud to have him as a representative. So that was a really important, monumental moment for Burnley politics. But unfortunately, the elders weren't able to scrutinise, challenge the BNP and expose them at the level where the next generation could, through because of our blessed education and the way we could articulate. So monumental moment for me, and I'm very proud that Burnley got rid of the BNP.
Out of a huge challenge came a huge opportunity for yourself to make that change, to make that difference in the local community, and a point of inspiration for a lot of people there, because the thought of standing for public office is a really daunting prospect for a lot of people. But the thought of standing for public office amid a situation where you have a number of, many would argue, far-right parties that are out with their particular narrative is a scary one, to put it bluntly. And the fact that you were able to take on that challenge is a hugely inspirational point for those watching. We are coming up to a break very shortly, but we're in conversation with the Right Honourable Noble Lord Wajid Khan of Burnley, who's speaking to us about his journey into politics, the challenges that he's faced. And a lot of people look at politicians and they say, "Oh, right, it's all right for them. They're in a cushy position. They're in a very good job. But I think what you're hearing from Lord Wajid Khan tonight is the huge challenges, you know, the metaphorical bruises that he himself has sustained through his political journey and the sacrifices that he's made in his life personally in order to give back to his local community. Please do keep on watching, and if you have a question like Ahmad Khan did earlier, we would love for you to call in 01924 231 083. Perhaps you're looking to get involved in politics. You've got a passion for politics, but there's something holding you back. There's something you're worried about, you're concerned about. Well, you've got a chance to ask a role model directly on the television tonight. So please give us a call or send us a message. We'll be back right after this break. Stay tuned to Behind the Headlines. Back after this. Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum and welcome back after that break. This is Behind the Headlines live on British Muslim TV this Friday evening, and we are honoured and privileged to be in conversation with Lord Wajid Khan of Burnley, someone who has not only received acclaim in terms of his political achievements, but in academia, community leadership, and has a huge amount to say for young people and people just generally looking for a change in life who are watching the program right now. Now, Lord Khan, welcome back to the show. Before the break, we were talking about how you took on the BNP. There will be people who would say that the reason why, I mean, now if you look at the political landscape that we have, we see that the BNP hold very little, if not any, seats around the country. But there are other far-right parties that have managed to gain traction, and people would argue that, oh, this is because the mainstream, the bigger parties, the Conservative Party, the Labour Party, have failed to talk about the issues that people are talking about in communities. What's your thoughts on that? How do the mainstream of politics, if you like, the major parties, ensure that they are playing their role in speaking about those issues, preventing far-right parties and groups from coming forward?
I'm afraid you are right. The BNP, unfortunately, have reinvented themselves, and there's been different other right-wing factions. For example, Britain First, and I've just recently spent a lot of time in Batley. Obviously, Joel Cox lost a life through a fascist killer. We've got to be honest, and I think I hear the frustrations across the country. There's an APPG on British Muslims. There's an APPG on Islamophobia. I think we shouldn't be scared to say, look, unfortunately, there's too much of Islamophobia on the rise, and we've got to say it as it is. It's across different sections of society, and even in politics. We've got to really, as mainstream parties, put the pressure on leaderships of these parties to say, first adopt these definitions and acknowledge and recognize that these issues are real and prevalent. And actually then we can need to tackle the scourge of racism, far-right fascism, and as well as Islamophobia. And the way we do that is ensure that the infrastructures of these institutions and the policies and procedures are foolproof and clear out any form of discrimination.
Have you yourself found yourself becoming the victim of the Islamophobia, the racism to which you refer in the environment that you worked in politically, first of all at the council, and then moving on to higher office thereafter?
I mean, it's a very interesting question. I think I should say this. Yeah, I have faced Islamophobia on my upward journey in life, and this is something that's it's a cancer in society. Any form of discrimination. The way you got to fight it out is before I just ignored it, and I think that's not the right approach, because if you ignore it, it'll happen to somebody else. And I think the way you've got to do it is call these people out. If you look at social media in particular, we saw that after the England football match, the amount of online abuse that the three footballers suffered. Saka, Sancho, and Rashford, and I can relate to that. Some of the comments when I used to articles about me appeared in the local newspaper. If you look, all you've got to do is go through the comments, and you realise that there are some really sick individual people out there that focus from a very narrow short-sighted, backward lens of the color of your skin.
I'm just gonna pause you there, Lord Wajid Khan, if I may, because we've got a couple of callers online who want to speak to you, and let's definitely go to them and allow them to do that. Let's go to the lines. Assalamu alaikum, you're live on British Muslim TV.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. What's your name? Where are you calling from, please?
My name's Yasmin. I'm calling from Glasgow.
Yasmin from Glasgow. How are you?
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Fine.
And do you have a question or a comment?
I just wanted to say, I know this is like England, but see where I stay in Scotland, we have similar problems, and I wanted to address that it's a lot, because they were talking about today about drug abuse, and they were talking about alcohol abuse. What are people doing, like MPs and lords, about people that are suffering with drugs and dying over drugs and alcohol abuse? Even in our culture and Muslim and stuff like that, people are, when I've seen a lot of people that are doing the same, and they're struggling. They've not got housing. It's poor housing association for their area. They don't know where to turn because the media doesn't tell you what jobs and where to go. It's no information there for them. They don't know what to do. They feel as if no one cares.
Very good question.
Sometimes I feel as if the politicians and the lords, it's just a name and a status, but they don't really get the funding and spend on real people in the real communities and real areas with real issues, real problems. It's just always just they pretend to do it. I don't
Sister Yasmin,
and a lot of people.
Thank you so much for your question. It's a very important one. Anyone who is suffering from drug issues or alcohol or anything of that nature can find support on britishmuslim.tv/support. So anyone who is suffering from the types of issues that Sister Yasmin mentioned can go to that website, britishmuslim.tv/support. And we will be putting that question to Lord Khan in just a moment. I just want to take another call before we do that. Next caller, Assalamu alaikum. You're live on British Muslim TV.
Wa alaikum salam. How are you, brother? You okay?
Really well, thank you. Really well, brother. How are you?
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
What's your name? Where are you calling from, please, brother?
My name is Rizwan Bat, and calling from Bury, Greater Manchester.
Welcome to the program, brother Rizwan. And what would you like to say today?
Thank you very much. I just have a question for Lord Wajid Khan.
Yes, sure.
I just want to say, first of all, I think it's a massive congratulations to Lord Wajid Khan. I think it's a fantastic achievement, representing our community in the House of Lords. And I just want to say a massive well done to him. I was just intrigued to know, really, it's something a little bit off the record, really. How Wajid Khan, how do you spend your social life when you're not in the House of Lords? What do you get up to? What's your favourite handy?
Very good. I think that's a really good question. And this is what this show is all about, Rizwan. It's about asking those questions that don't ordinarily get asked on interviews. So thank you so much for that, Rizwan. We'll ask that to Lord Khan in just a moment, if we may. Thank you so much for your call.
No problem. Thank you.
Take care. Assalamu alaikum. And we've got another caller. So let's go to the lines and let's go to our third caller. Assalamu alaikum. Oh, we've just lost them. If that was you, please call back. Everyone's joining the party. You might as well. 01924 231 083. Now, Lord Khan, a real mixed bag there. Let me start with Sister Yasmin's question, if I may. Drug abuse, alcohol abuse, and she makes a really important point. There is this view that perhaps we as British Muslims haven't spoken enough about the issues that alcohol or alcoholism, drug abuse, even sadly within our own communities has now. I know that not only are you a member of the House of Lords, but you have a background in youth work and working with young people. What are your thoughts on this issue? How well are we addressing this, and what work are you and your colleagues doing in the House of Lords, House of Commons, the government to look at these issues?
First of all, Ahmed, a very important question by Sister Yasmin from Scotland. I think the reason why she's raised that, because today the facts and figures have been announced in relation to drug-related deaths, and unfortunately with the same laws as the rest of the United Kingdom, Scotland has 3.5 times more deaths than any other area in the United Kingdom. So that's a tragedy. The solution to that is simple: a more targeted approach and money funds towards treatment and recovery. wherever there's needs-based. Of course, there's a problem there in all our communities, and we need to look at that. And in particular, Scotland, the figures are absolutely disturbing and very depressing. And my thoughts to all the families that have lost loved ones due to this scourge of drug abuse. Also, just to reassure Yasmin's sister, I think the way we're going to look at this is ensure that the government funding levelling up, or town fund, whichever approach we want to look at it, is we need to make sure that that money does get to communities through local councils and also through local organisations that work in particular in these issues. And I would be asking the question and writing questions to the Minister in the House of Lords, but also I work very closely with the leader of my political party in Scotland, and Asawa. We have a very close brotherly relationship, and I'll be talking to him soon and making sure that we can collaborate and a response back which represents all communities. Ensure that we get the right support for our young people. And I really do fear this, Ahmed, in the sense that because of lockdown, because of this pandemic, mental health issues, for young people in particular, how they've been treated. And if you look at years and years of austerity, lack of money and funding cuts, youth services provisions have been cut. We need to ensure that the right level of money is now invested in them communities, so our kids, our young people have the right future, which is full of opportunity. My last point, moving from a serious point to Mr. Batt's question from
yes.
I think that was a very good question. It actually caught me totally off guard. I think it's so important that Mr. Batt, that we do have an important social life away from politics, because it can actually swallow you if you're always involved in it. And I work late. I leave the Parliament till 10 o'clock at night. But my favourite dish, if you ask, is I love a masala fish, and there's a lovely restaurant I go over just down the road in Tooting called Royal Mahal, and I must say I love the food there. I enjoy my food, and that's why during lockdown, after lockdown in London, I put a lot of weight on, probably because of Royal Mahal masala fish and other cuisines.
Other restaurants are, of course, available, but I'm sure that that's really good to hear, because a lot of people think politicians constantly 24/7 on duty. And thank you very much for sharing that with us, that unique insight into your life and your pastime as well, in terms of what you do when you're not working and legislating on behalf of the great people of this country. And thank you also for the assurances you've given in terms of drugs and alcohol abuse and what a priority it is for you. And I think the key point that Sister Yasmin was making there, which you picked up on, was the fact that, even in terms of cultural specific support, we as a community need to do more to talk about those issues as well. We are coming up to a break, but we're in conversation with the inspirational Lord Wajid Khan of Burnley, speaking about his journey throughout politics, and also learning more about him, everything from his pastime to the issues that he's championing. So if you've got a question for Lord Wajid Khan, you'd be more than welcome to call us. We'd love to hear from you. 01924 231 083. And as you heard there from Rizwan Bat, it can be any question that you like, you can ask to Lord Wajid Khan, particularly for those of you who perhaps see yourself going into politics, community work, or academia. We'd love to hear from you. We'll be back right after this break. Stay tuned to Behind the Headlines. Back after this. Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome back to the final part, can you believe it, of Behind the Headlines. We're in conversation with Lord Wajid Khan of Burnley, someone who has been sharing with us his life story, taking your questions, your comments, and some really important issues. Thank you to everyone who's called so far. This is the final segment, so if you do want to call or send a message, now is your chance. Now, Lord Wajid Khan, we've spoken about a lot throughout this program, and there's so much more that we can speak about, but I particularly want to focus on your work to do with international human rights. You have been on the front line of championing human rights at home and abroad, particularly when it comes to the issues we see in Kashmir. A lot of people would say, however, Lord Wajid Khan, Our parents, our grandparents were all very active on this issue. You're now active on this issue, but nothing seems to change on the ground. The people of Kashmir are still suffering. Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch are still sadly publishing reports. What we do on the ground in terms of protest, what you do in the House of Lords and the legislative chambers, does it actually make a difference?
Ahmad, it's a very valid point you made there. And my answer to that would be absolutely makes a difference. And I remember one conversation I had with somebody from Srinagar, a young man who unfortunately was blinded through pellet guns, lost his sight. And he said to me on the phone, he said, at the time I was a member of European Parliament, he said, Mr. MEP, we're just delighted that you've raised this issue in the European Parliament, because every time we hear you speaking about it in the European Parliament and others on the streets of London or Birmingham or Bradford or here in Manchester, it gives us inspiration, it gives us resilience, and it gives us that fight to never give up. And I think from that point of view, the images, the media attention, the pictures of us protesting here or anywhere in the West or US or whatever, it gives people the hope that there are people out there who will continue fighting the cause. I think there's been a massive shift over the last few years in particular. I think in the European Parliament, I really struggled in saying that the Kashmir cause never had the same level of spotlight, internationalization as the Palestine cause did. Over the last few years, we've been able to inform, even today, if you look at on Twitter, the Vice President of the European Parliament, who is responsible for human rights, Fabio Massimo Castaldo, a very noble friend of mine, great man, he's tweeted in relation to August the 5th, the 2-year anniversary, and he's tweeted that today. So people out there are still fighting for the Kashmiris. But I've got to say this, Ahmed, I salute the resilience. I pay tribute to the sacrifices of the Kashmiri people who want what they were promised to them by the United Nations, a future of their own and a life free of human rights abuses, and something we take here for granted.
Mm-hmm. So true, Lord Khan, so true. We do have a caller online, so let's go to this caller and ask them what they would like to say. Assalamu alaikum, caller. You're live on British Muslim TV.
Assalamu alaikum. It's Muhammad Aslam from Nelson again.
Wa alaikum assalam, Muhammad Aslam from Nelson. Welcome to the program.
Sir, I've been 40 years social welfare officer, do benefits, everything, but I find at this moment of time, especially Corona situation, there is no funding for voluntary organizations, charities, voluntary organizations, or base community been working in this area for a long time. No funding from local council, no funding from county council, no funding from central government. Lord, our brother need to raise this issue either with the Secretary of State. There's a high population in Berlin, Pendle area, and there's a lot of people from European community, especially British Pakistani or Pani Pakistani who've been Italy, Spain. They've got a lot of social problems. And there is no mechanism at the moment for local authority, everything online. They are struggling with the language problem, community, especially the ladies. We need to do something, and I want to raise this issue with Lord Wajid. He needs to raise up at the highest level. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mr. Muhammad Aslam. Your words have gone directly to the noble Lord Wajid Khan. He has heard what you have to say, and you've made a very important point. 2 points there, actually. Thank you so much for your call, Muhammad Aslam. Really appreciate your call. Thank you so much. And we'll put your point to Lord Khan in just a moment. Thank you so much. Lord Khan, I think there's 2 points there that Muhammad Aslam is making. Firstly, around the lack of funding that is there for the voluntary sector, for the community sector, which you alluded to earlier, but also a specific point around, I believe it was to do with EU resettlement that's going on at the moment, and particularly people from the Pakistani community, from the various minority ethnic communities that are coming from Europe, who have been living in the United Kingdom and originally came from a number of European countries, not having the support that they need in order to help them. What are your thoughts on that, and are you making representation to the government on this particular issue?
Firstly, Ahmed, I want to say thank you to Muhammad Aslam Sahab. I know him, I've seen his work, he's got a formidable track record for over 40 years of work. So he kind of worked with the first generation, and they were trying to get involved and settle themselves and established as British citizens. And now he's actually working with challenges from people from Europe with Pakistani heritage, and particularly from Italy and Spain, I believe. And this is a really important point. There's a changing nature to our communities. Our communities have a lot of people from different parts of the world. And he makes a valid point. That whole shift of community change, and that needs to be supported, that whole transition for them and also for the host community, it requires a significant amount of support. And people like Muhammad Aslam, who are heroes of our communities, who have been shown and delivering dedicated public service, the organizations that they run and work with, they are the organizations that sadly have been cut and they've lost a lot of money. And I think we've got to re-look at that and make sure and ensure that these organizations that are doing such a wonderful service to communities for years and years, them organizations need the right tools and right equipment to continue to support and develop them communities. And without the money and support, the targeted approach, the levelling up agenda has to mean that these organizations are well resourced. I will be fighting, I reassure you, Mr. Muhammad Aslam, I will be fighting for your organization's corner to ensure that the brilliant work that you have been doing can be continued in the future. And thank you for all what you do.
Thank you very much for that, Lord Wajid Khan. I think not only will that be welcomed by Mr. Aslam, but also by many of our viewers who are watching, who are increasingly concerned. And it's a topic that I don't think we speak about enough, particularly with the exit of the United Kingdom from the European Union. There are a number of specific challenges that brothers and sisters that have come over to the UK from European countries are presently facing. As Muhammad Aslam said, particularly women, particularly people for whom English is not their first language, real difficulties there, which you acknowledge and you're working on, which is reassuring to hear. Coming back to the issue of Kashmir, if we may, a lot of people watching this program who are not the most political or don't regard themselves the most political get very confused when they see what they regard as double standards on the international stage when it comes to human rights issues. If we look at a number of issues that might come to the forefront, you will see governments and countries coming out and saying sanctions against those human rights abusers. But when it comes to Kashmir, for example, and issues like that, we don't see the same vigor. We don't see the same energy. Why is that? Is that fault on our part as a community? Are we not working hard enough on these issues?
That's a really beautiful point you raised there. And I think that kind of highlights my inner frustration. I think what we're doing is we are working hard, and I've got to give credit to all the organizations that work on Kashmir. But I think we need to professionalize our approach, and we need to get in the parties and ensure that the manifestos are right for the future. So I've set up with my good friend, colleague, Wasim Zafar, and with your fantastic input, Ahmad, and others, young people across the area, a Labour Friends of Kashmir, a movement within our organisation, within the party, to ensure that the policy is right for the future. I think that's what's lacking before. We needed to ensure that the big main political parties are having a serious approach. Now we've also got Conservatives, Friends of Kashmir, Liberal Democrats, Friends of Kashmir. So these are really important points. But moving aside to the international side point of view, I think the international community has failed Kashmir. This is not a unilateral approach. Bilaterals failed. So the only approach left is a multilateral approach, with the United Nations doing its job, fulfilling its obligations and its promise to the Kashmiri people. And if you look at human rights are universal, and you need to look at this not from Pakistan and India agenda. This is about Kashmiris and human beings, and this is about humanity. My hope is that the United Nations Human Rights Council, HRC, in Geneva have wrote and authored 2 reports. I've been working with colleagues there. The United Nations as an institution have to move on this, and Britain and other countries have got to look at India not from a trade opportunity. They need to look at what's right for the Kashmiri people. And I had a lot of friends and brothers and sisters in India who actually, Indian brothers and sisters who share this frustration. A trade deal shouldn't be at the expense of the grave human rights abuses to the Kashmiri people. There needs to be now a real, not pick and choose, that country's okay, fine, we'll go for them, we won't go after these people. They need to have it consistently across the whole world. We
see a huge movement within the House of Commons and the House of Lords when it comes to the issue of Kashmir. Members of Parliament, members of the House of Lords, like your good self, have frequently spoken on this issue, have ran motions and resolutions on this particular issue. But how do you ensure that that international consensus remains, perhaps a consensus that you had previously with the European Parliament? How are you making sure that that coordination remains and that issues of human rights remain alive and active within institutions like the European Parliament, where, of course, we're no longer a member? Briefly, if you would.
Very briefly, I think we need to have a strong relationship with the European Parliament. I'm proud today the Vice President, who in particularly looks after human rights, has tweeted and I wrote a letter to Ursula von der Leyen and also Joseph Borrell, the Foreign Minister. So these are important initiatives that they are taking in the European Parliament. We've got to keep them relationships alive.
Sure.
We need to keep raising the points and making sure that this is a long-term marathon, not short-term sprint, and I'm sure over time we'll be able to achieve justice for the Kashmiri people.
Inshallah. Lord Wajid Khan, it's been an absolute pleasure and honor having you on Behind the Headlines today. Thank you so much for sharing with us in such an open manner your story, taking calls from our viewers. It's been an honor to have you with us, and we thank you for your time today.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
Dear viewers, hope you've enjoyed the program. I sure hope that, inshallah, we'll have Lord Wajid Khan joining us on the program again, because there's so much to talk about, so many topics we didn't have the chance to explore, but inshallah, we'll be able to do so on a future edition of the show. We'll be back next Friday between 7 and 8 p.m. Until then, remember us and each other in your du'as. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.